Aha!
Hi everyone, welcome back. Before I launch you into my next instalment of me rabbiting on talking about minis and engines and stuff like that, I'd like to give a real warm-hearted thank you to the new subscribers. You know, it does take an effort to set up an account on YouTube and subscribe, so thank you very much for that. It does mean a lot. Anybody else watching, if you care to do the same, it all helps. And if you don't want to do that, just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever takes your fancy. I just thought I'd say before the next video is I do waffle on a little bit sometimes. Some of my terminology is a little bit naive. I do tend to talk before I think sometimes, and I do seem to waste a hell of a lot of time trying stuff, experimenting with stuff to see if it works. So bear with me on it. This engine project in the Mini I'm working on, I'm doing it as a complete education for me. That's what I get a buzz out of. I like learning stuff. And so far, it seems to be working. I'm really enjoying doing what I'm doing with it, learning stuff, cocking things up occasionally. But yeah, so bear with me. I get terminology wrong. I talk a lot of rubbish occasionally, but I'm on a journey with it. You're more than welcome to come along with me on this journey. So yeah, enjoy the video and thanks again. Cheers. Hi everyone, we're back on the Mini 1976. Last time I left you, I think we were at the unveiling of the Project Detour onto the different class of engine, using a Nissan Micra engine instead of a traditional A series, which was a bit of a bold step for me, especially when I don't know what I'm doing half the time, and I tend to make things up as I go along. But all part of the journey, as I said before. But I just thought I'd bring her up to speed onto the advancements I've made since the last video. I'm going to stop buggering around with these partially the wings now. I'm going to get those welded on. I'm pretty satisfied with the carving out I've had to do on them to get them to fit around this modified subframe. I'll take you in for a closer look at the modifications I've had to do to those in the wings in a minute. But I just thought I'd give you a little overview of the, I don't know the correct word to use. I could use the word obstacles or challenges which are ahead for me on this. But what I've learned so far is that when I went to pick up the engine, I had this idea in my head because I'd seen a photo of it, and it was a big lump of an engine with mounted to a big lump of a gearbox, and I don't know what it was. I just thought it was going to be bigger than it actually is and heavier than it actually is, but it's not. It's quite peculiar, being made of aluminium, I suppose. It's probably about the same weight as an A series engine with its gearbox on. So when we were lifting it up and manoeuvring it about a bit, it didn't feel as unwieldy as I thought it was going to be. So that made me feel a bit better about it. I didn't want the Mini trying to handle a big heavier lump in the front. I remember when I was a teenager, I remember fitting a 1750 Maxi engine into a Clubman. God, and that was a big heavy lump. That was really, I don't know what series those engines are, whether they're H series or O series or something like that, but this Micra engine is about the same weight, so I was quite happy about that. It has thrown up a few peculiarities, if I can say that word properly. It's still a transverse engine. The difference is the gearbox isn't on underneath. The gearbox is to the one side. There is just a normal transmission oil sump there underneath. Because the gearbox is to the one side, as they tend to be on these different vehicle engine transplants, like the K series engine from Rover is this side, all pushed over this side, same as this one. The Honda engines all seem to be pushed over that way. It does move away from the standard approach of the A series. The A series has sort of got everything in the middle of the engine bay. So you've got the carburettor or the throttle body of an A series in the middle. The exhaust pipe comes down the back in the middle. Everything is in the middle of the engine bay with the A series, and it gives you a bit of space each side on the A series to get things like the radiator in that side. You can get a brake servo in that side. Nothing interferes with the clutch and master cylinders this side. You can get your wiper motor and stuff out over that side. So an A series engine is a bit more symmetrical within the bay, but the Micra engine is all rammed over to this, to this one side, which can lead to a problem when you are looking at things not interfering with the brake and master cylinder at the back there. So I think the other issue with it all being rammed over this side and the gearbox that side is you get the alternator this side, all the pulleys and the drive belts are this side, and they're again another bit on the side of the engine, all being forced over towards this inner wing. So it does become a bit biased towards this one side. I think that's the challenge when you're trying to, fit a square peg in a round hole. But I think the other thing which is obvious when you think about it, but because it's a 16 valve engine instead of an 8 valve engine as a traditional A series, the inlet manifold is on the rear of the engine and the exhaust manifold is on the front of the engine, if that's the right way around, because you've got all the inlet stuff going on that side and all the exhaust stuff going on that side. So you've then got to consider, obviously, how the manifold and exhaust pipe is going to emerge out of the cylinder head and come down and wrap itself under and shoot off to the back of the car. You've also got the alternator to consider. It's got to go this side because that's where all the drive belts are, all the pulleys are. You obviously don't need as much on a Mini as you would on a Micra. I mean, you're not going to have things like drive belts for air conditioning or anything like that, unless you're really desperate. But yeah, there's some real kind of physical differences in just the engine, and because you've got the engine rammed over this side and you've not got the gearbox underneath and that's pushed over to that side with the clutch in between, the subframe or the cradle that it sits in necessarily needs to be wider. So again, that impedes on the inner wings on the body shell. So yeah, everything pushes out wider. Engine's wider, interferes with the inner wings. Subframe's wider. interferes with the inner wings. Things start sticking out, interfere with the inner wings and the front valance and downpipes and things. So, you know, there's some differences. What else have I got to say? Other differences are going to be the clutch. This bracket here, which I'll show you a bit later, is a cable operated clutch, so that's different. The diff is in a slightly, at the back of the gearbox is in a slightly different position. So there's obviously going to be some drive shaft implications on there. So that'll be fun, figuring out how to cut them down and weld them up, make them fit, getting the lengths and things of them. But I'm sure I can turn things down on the lathe and sleeve these things or something like that. I think there's plenty of videos out on YouTube of different people doing it different ways. So yeah, clutch operation is going to be slightly different. I'll have to modify the clutch pedal internally to adapt to a cable, but again, I think there's guidance online about that. The accelerator, throttle cable, bit of modification on there on the accelerator pedal, but I can't see that being too much of an issue. What else is there? Yeah, the fact that it's a modern engine. I don't know when this was developed, in the 90s probably, this series of engine, but the A series being developed in probably the 1940s, late 40s, possibly earlier than that. So there's decades of difference in technology on these things, and there's going to be sensors all over the place, you know, MAF sensors, lambda sensors, oil temperature sensors, sensing the sensors, God knows what, but that should be fun, learning all about those. So I'm looking forward to that. Fuel injection. Again, I've never messed with fuel injection car, so I've got some inlet manifold, fuel rail modifications to do. I've already learned quite a bit about that, and that was interesting. So yeah, I've got a bit out of that. What else we got? Security, electrics, all that kind of thing. Nissans have got on the car, they've got their own anti-theft system, Nissan anti-theft system, which abbreviates down to NATS. A lot of people may have heard of that. Needs the key, needs the door locks, just to physically get the electrics to function, get the ECU to do what the ECU needs to do. I want to try and do a dual wiring loom on this. I want to try and, if I can, if I've got the knowledge, or I can get the knowledge, to run the general Mini lights and ancillaries to work off the normal loom, tapping off the loom, the Nissan loom which I've got, and that choice will then influence, I'm presuming, correct me if I'm wrong, things like the security aspect, what else we got? We got the cam sensor, the timing sensors, or the crank sensor, feeding all these different bits of information back into the ECU, not throwing up too many fault codes, and allowing the car to fire up at the turn of a key. So yeah, all good fun. So as you saw, the engine's in. You can already see a couple of adaptations I've done. This hunk of a cast exhaust manifold here with a sensor hole there. It's already had some modification by the looks of it. I'll need to further modify it because it's sticking right through the front of the grille. But the downpipe element of it on this exhaust manifold will clear this front valance here. I've just got to do a little semicircular cutout to bring the pipe down and round. I've got the pipe around here somewhere. so that doesn't bother me too much. The alternator is a, I think it's a Daihatsu alternator, smaller bodied. Still, I think this valance has got to come forward 1/4 of an inch, so it will need to move forward because these inner wings just need to come forward a touch. But I'm going to use packers behind the mounting bolts to give me a bit of adjustment on this front valance. But I think there's going to be the need for some kind of grille modification here. But I'll show you this area here in clearer detail. I'll pop this inner wing off. What else we got? Let's take you off the stand and I'll give you a look-see. Right, so Daihatsu alternator. Looks like a kind of a stock cast Nissan exhaust manifold coming down to a bolted on spigot outlet there, bolted on, so I'm sure I can weld that to that and cut most of this chunk off. It doesn't need to be that large. What else have we got? Been doing some work on the inlet manifold as well. So that's I think I said last time, Toyota Celica inlet manifold. I've kind of adapted it to work as a plenum with the throttle body mounted on the side. The throttle cable will come in there and activate this this butterfly, which looks like the one on an SU, to be honest, which will regulate the amount of air flowing into this chamber, and then the air will run down those 4 aluminium pipes into the modified Micra inlet manifold there, which is still in a position to accept the fuel rail and the injectors in there in the normal Micra fashion. So I think that's worked quite well. There's I've still got plenty of work to do on this manifold. I've had to do an adaptation plate from the one to the other. I'm working on some mini heater hose outlet there mounted on for a vac pipe if I need it. I've got to weld up these 4 original holes that were on there, which I cut off. You can see that you can see the 4 pipes which need clearing up, and you can see that this plenum is going to be nut and bolted onto the flange of these pipes sweeping down. Don't know what you call them, headers are they or something, runners? Yeah, so that'll be demountable, which should make things a bit better. So yeah, all these things covered in blue are bits of rubber glove, and you know they're off things like the cooling pipes. There's some, I think that one down there in blue, that one might be there's some kind of breather for the gearbox, looking at that. And what else we got? I think we got a crank position sensor somewhere down there as well. We got this modification here for the alternator. Yeah, that was done and supplied by, so yeah, this adaptation here was done by RCL Frames. they're the people, or the man, I think it's just one man, who does the subframes. He does drive shaft, custom drive shafts as well, and he's done these, very kindly done these fantastic mounting brackets for me. But I'll pop this inner wing off and you can have a closer look at that, and you can see something I've got to do as well. So I'll just put this inner wing off. So put the inner wing off. You can kind of see what's left of it. I've had to carve all that out. So as I said, the cradle, the subframe, is wider than normal one, and it's just literally eating into the inner wing. But there's the alternator setup. I can't even get the belt on at the moment, because the problem is that this this second part of the pulley, I can't even get the engine lifting strap off. So that's a two level pulley there. I'll be running on the inner pulley down there, up to this one, up to the water pump here, and onto this jockey wheel there. Now this redundant outer pulley here, this one, that causes a bit of debate amongst among the group chats and things. I've been told, oh, don't worry about it, leave it on. I've been told, well, stick it on the lathe, which I can do, and turn it down, you don't need it. At the moment, I physically couldn't get the belt on there, because it's literally, well, I don't think it's even a millimetre away. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to modify the subframe. Put a section out there and just step the subframe stabiliser arm here around that pulley. I'm going to leave it on. If you look on the group chat, you'll see things about how you shouldn't turn it down on a lathe. It upsets the harmonics of the engine and can cause overrun, and then other people turn them down, chop them off, weld trigger wheels to them, and all types of things, which, you know, I might end up doing in the end if I'm struggling. But I'm just going to modify that and get that welded on. Cut a section out there on the black lines, and that'll give a nice bit of clearance for that redundant pulley. I'd rather leave it on and not upset things too much. So yeah, you can see why that inner wing, this brace bar here, is what does the damage. When I lift this subframe back up, it will literally scrape along the inner wings, but I'd rather keep as much inner wing as possible. So yeah, that's inlet manifold, still working on that. Getting the alternator to work and modifying the subframe, still working on that. Still working on the exhaust. You know, if I had a spare few £100, you know, I could get an inlet manifold made. Cable clutch, cable sheath ends on there, and then this basically pulls the arm in and releases the clutch. So throttle cable on there. So yeah, looks all good. I've already got a box full of bits. Those wings are cut off. I've got to weld some of those back on to try and strengthen all that I've cut out. Try and re-box out that that mounting position there, so I need to do that. This is the inner wing, the other side, ready to go. Again, you can see I've got no pulleys or anything interfering this side, so there's not been as much taken out. I've tried to leave in as much as possible. Like I say, this subframe is literally going to scrape up the inside. I've got to sort that raggedy area out there. Drive shafts where the blue rubber glove is, you can see. Yeah, we've got another sensor there. God knows what that one is. But yeah, that diff is really close. This drive shaft must be exceptionally short this side. There's loads of room for steering rack. I might reinforce the floor where that subframe bolts to. Yeah, so there's plenty to go at. Yeah, my box of bits I was trying to bend some rectangular aluminium tube and try and get the profile of the manifold, but I was told don't be stupid, can't use rectangular tube for an inlet manifold because everybody uses circular tube, so, which is a shame because that worked quite well. That bent really easily and I could have just welded those little slits up. But yeah, don't be stupid. Trigger wheel, if I ever need to go down there. Drive belts. Gonna see if that fits. I was considering a steel approach to you can see the outline of the inlet manifold to the cylinder head. I was looking at designing a steel one. The fuel injectors are in there, and there's the fuel rail. So plenty of bits to play with. It's like a big Meccano kit, it's great. So I'll leave it there. Next update, I haven't got a clue what it's going to be. I'll need to get on with the bodywork. I've still got to get some paint on. So I think the next thing is I'm going to probably take the front valance off. I'm going to lift the engine out. I'm going to do some modification work to the subframe. And I'm going to try and get these inner wings welded in position, and obviously then the front valance will need to be welded in position. But a lot of things have got to come off for this engine to be dropped out on the subframe in the future. I've got to consider the fact, well, I've got to be able to get this off. I've got to have to get this off because everything's got to drop cleanly down. So the more debentable parts I can have for dropping the subframe in and out easily, I think will be better. But who knows? Yeah, so look out for the next video and speak to you soon.